Right, Ruth chapter 3, as I mentioned, and I just wanted to clarify something that I've shared the last 2 weeks in Ruth as well, just kind of why we're going through this. And it's really to show how God sovereignly works in all circumstances to accomplish his purposes. And that's not fatalism, by the way. That's not God has determined every single decision that any one of us will make. He works within our volition, our choices. It's kind of amazing how the Lord is at work behind the scenes throughout the book of Ruth, and he's orchestrating things absolutely, but it wasn't like these were robotic moves by Ruth and Boaz, and God just like those claw machines, that you can move them. And by the way, I've never won a thing from those things. But you know what I'm talking about, the claw machine, you send it out, then you send it to the right. It's not God going, oh, now you're stuck doing my... No, he's orchestrating things behind... Yeah, right? Was that a Toy Story reference that I just did unknowingly? You're all welcome for that. But it is. It's like that's not how God's operating, right? He's working within the volition of people, but behind the scenes, he's at work through all this. And you cannot deny his hand sovereignly working to accomplish his purposes through all that. As they make their decisions, he's working through it behind it to accomplish his purposes. And then we also see that we're going through Ruth to reveal God's faithfulness in providing a redeemer for all who trust in him. And so we'll see that in this narrative, the temporal redeemer. We'll see that even more in chapter 3 this morning, but finally it plays out in chapter 4 at the conclusion of this. But it points to the ultimate redeemer, not just a temporal redeemer to redeem them in their time, in their moment, but an eternal redeemer to redeem us from the condemnation that we deserve, and that is Christ. And the Lord is at work, even through the book of Ruth, through the person of Ruth, to bring about our Redeemer, Jesus the Messiah. And then finally, to encourage us to remain steadfast as we wait for the full realization of our redemption. It's not to say that we haven't already been saved by Christ, but we have not experienced the fullness of our redemption that will come in glory in the presence of our Lord. So we have gotten a foretaste of it, but we have not experienced the fullness of it that awaits us. And so as we wait, we remain steadfast in Jesus, awaiting for the fullness of that to be realized, to come into being, come into fruition, just as he has promised and just as he has accomplished. And so as we continue on, then this is why we're going through it. And I want to clarify as well, as we're diving into this morning, let me go through the preceding verse, because we went through chapter 2 last week. And this preceding verse was this. And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, lest in another field you be assaulted." So she kept close to the young women of Boaz, gleaning until the end of the barley and wheat harvests. And she lived with her mother-in-law. And as you remember at the beginning of chapter 2, as you may remember, at the beginning of chapter 2, Ruth says, I'm going to go out and see the one with whom I may find favor, right? She goes out hoping to find someone with whom she may find favor. So she's going to work in the fields. And again, the Lord was at work, leading her ultimately to Boaz's field, the field of Boaz. And she goes there into this, and here's the reality. He is a man who is a man of high character, a man who is protecting. Remember, this is taking place in the time of the judges when each person did what was right in his own eyes. And so we see a lot of people doing what was right in their own eyes was perhaps taking advantage of young women in the fields who were by themselves and assaulting them. And so she's saying, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, just as he gave you permission to do and called you to do, that you would do that, lest in another field you be assaulted. So then she stayed close to the young women, and she gleans all the way through the end. She's working hard. She's bringing back more in abundance to Naomi, to care for Naomi, and Boaz is blessing her in abundance, right? He doesn't just allow her to do the basic things that were required by the law. He goes above and beyond to provide for her and to provide for Naomi in such generous means, such generous ways. And so she continues all the way to the end of the barley and wheat harvest, and she continues to live with Naomi, and she's caring for her in her old age at that time. And she's meeting these needs. She's working hard in the field, bringing this back, working so hard and caring for her throughout it all. And so that leads us then into chapter 3 today. After this, she gives her this encouragement. That's where they're at. But what we'll see today specifically, here's 4 things that I think we'll see. We see Ruth and Boaz, they interact in purity and righteousness. All right, we'll see that in the text. Some have tried to speculate certain things based on what's written, but that's not founded historically in what's there. So I'll go into that a little bit. But just recognizing their interactions are filled with purity and uprightness in how they deal with one another and how they interact with each other and frankly with those outside of the two of them. They're interacting in a way that is godly in that regard. We also see that Ruth and Boaz seek to bless Naomi if they are to marry. All right? It's chapter 3. We haven't gotten to chapter 4. So if you know the story, no spoilers. All right? But they are seeking to be a blessing to Naomi as they marry. It would be a blessing to her and her name, and ultimately a blessing more broadly than that if they were to marry, but they're not simply in it for themselves and what they can gain out of it. There's really a selflessness even as they enter into their marital vows or as they pursue that avenue potentially. We also see that Boaz will settle things quickly so that Ruth, and I would say and Naomi as well, are well cared for. See, in this situation, Boaz could sit on it, he could wait, but he recognizes there's an urgency to this, and his action will then lead to them being cared for more quickly, more readily, rather than sitting back and waiting to see how this thing plays out. He takes action so that he could care for them with intentionality. So he's not going to let things linger. We'll just sit back and relax. No, he's intentional and proactive to make sure that they are cared for, and we'll see that towards the end of the chapter. And finally, we see that Boaz doesn't allow desire to lead him to impropriety. All right, and we'll see that, as I mentioned before, kind of with purity and righteousness. It's a similar point, but specifically as it pertains to Boaz, we'll see that in this text as well, that he doesn't allow his desire ultimately to marry Ruth. He doesn't allow that to lead him to impropriety into how he treats her or into the process by which they would move forward in this marriage. All right, so that's what we'll see in our text. Now we'll jump in and I'll kind of go through sections of it and we'll look at it specifically. So in Ruth chapter 3, then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her daughter, "My daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash therefore and anoint yourself, and put on your cloak and go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he is finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do." And she replied, "All that you say, I will do." So we see this great care for one another in this. Remember here in verse 1, Naomi, she says, "My daughter, should I not be seeking rest for you? Should I not find this idea of rest for you is really in someone who can care for you. I'm not able to care for you. Should I not seek rest for you? I can't provide a child." She's already made that clear, so there's not another son coming along to care for you. Remember, this is her daughter-in-law, and Naomi has lost her sons, and this is her Moabite daughter-in-law, that clingy one, as I've mentioned. And she's like, "Should I not seek rest for you?" She cares deeply for her. There's a mutual care and love and compassion for one another and concern for one another. So Naomi's like, "Hey, I should be seeking rest for you. You're caring for me so well, but I should be doing this for you so that it will go well with you." And then she mentions Boaz. Now we saw this actually in chapter 2 as well, about him being one of our redeemers. He's a close relative, one of our redeemers. So now she goes, "Is not Boaz a relative with whose young women you were?" Here's what we know. Here's what we can do. He's winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. This was a common practice. What would happen is, especially the owners, but their workers would be out there as well. Remember, he has workers, he has servants working the land along with him. But they would go and they would winnow barley, and what would happen on the threshing floor is they would often do this at night because the winds would come, which would help to separate out the portions of their crops, essentially. And so this winnowing process of the barley would be taking place when it's windy and it's a little bit cooler at night as well, rather than the super hot heat of the day under the sun. And so in this case, this is a common practice. They would winnow their barley at the threshing floor throughout the night, and then they'd eventually just kind of zonk out, probably from exhaustion and the food they're eating and all that too. So he would work there, and then essentially they would sleep there, fully clothed. And part of that was to protect the grains. But part of it was, I'm guessing, they worked so hard, they were just exhausted. And rather than travel back to where they were just like, "I'll just make a bed here and lay down." So this was a common practice in the day. And so she knew this. So she's saying, "Hey, he's winnowing barley tonight. This is the time for that winnowing process, and he'll be at the threshing floor." And then she says this, "Wash therefore and anoint yourself, and put on your cloak, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking." So remember, historically, maybe I shouldn't say remember this, but historically, what would happen is when you would become a widow, you would wear garments that would be widow garments. In fact, we were reading in the book of Genesis, doing kind of a Bible reading plan with our boys earlier this week, and we came across the story of Tamar. And if you remember Judah and Tamar in the book of Genesis, what took place there, but she was wearing her widow's clothing, And then she realized, hey, he's not going to provide me when his next son grows up. He's not going to give me this son. Not the exact situation here, but she recognized that wasn't the case. And the text tells us that she removed her widow's garments and dressed herself up, in that case, to look like a prostitute. But in this case, she's in her widow's garments, most likely. And Naomi's telling her daughter-in-law, hey, clean yourself up. Go get dressed, not in the widow's garments anymore. Wash, therefore. Anoint yourself. That anointing would be with a fragrant oil. Smell good. Clean up. Get yourself put together, and then put on your cloak. So it's different changing. It's not she's changing out of the grieving widow garment, so to speak, and now into this next phase. And really, it's interesting because this idea of the cloak, the way she's dressed, and as the text continues to unfold, it's more akin to what you would wear actually on a wedding. If you remember back again, we'll go to the book of Genesis where Jacob, with the wedding to Leah, thinking he's going to marry Rachel, that whole situation there, right? And there's a deception. Well, how would he not know? It wasn't that he was a crazy nitwit. It was that she's dressed in such a way that you couldn't even tell who she was. She's wearing the cloak. She's wearing the wedding garb. And so in this case, it's likely that she's dressing similarly. Like she's not stepping into a wedding now, but very well covered and cloaked in that regard, so that when we see in the text, Boaz asks, who are you? It's not like, oh, he's just, 3 sheets to the wind and doesn't know what's happening. No, it's not that. He would not know who this is when that comes. So she gives this directive, Naomi telling Ruth, hey, do these things. Follow my instructions. And when he lies down, observe the place when he lies. Don't make yourself known, but observe. Spy on this dude a little bit. Take a look at him. Stalk him for a while. No. But she is like, find out where he's going to be, all right? Pay attention to where he goes. And once he's done eating and drinking, don't make yourself known, but wait till he's finished with this. Then when he lies down, observe that place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do. And Ruth's response to all this isn't, that sounds a little outlandish. Sounds a little crazy, Mom. Are you losing it? Are you okay? Nope, she doesn't give that. She says, all that you say, I will do. She's trusting her mother-in-law in this situation. And so, continues on, so she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. Then she came softly and uncovered his feet and lay down. At midnight the man was startled and turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. Little unexpected. He said, who are you? And she answered, I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer. And so we see she's obeying what she was told. Now, maybe this is familiar to some of you, if maybe you had similar experiences. I know when Amanda and when I just met Amanda, there was one night where I woke up and all of a sudden there's this woman at the foot of my bed. She must have taken a cue from the book of Ruth. I'm kidding, that did not happen. Pretty unique for us, right? This is a very odd situation. We would never anticipate this in our time. And this is not, hey, here's a suggestion for how you can woo a man. If you're interested, women, here you go. No, this was culturally a part of the process that we see specific in that time. And again, this idea of a redeemer comes to play. All right, so looking at this specifically, I want to address a few things. So she goes down, she does all this stuff. Verse 7, and when Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. So again, this is where he's laying. Now, some people have tried to read into this that Boaz, this means that he's eaten and he is drunk and his heart is merry on alcohol. I don't believe that's indicated in this text, and there's a few reasons for that, and I did a far deeper dive into this than I probably needed to this week because I was really interested to figure out what's going on. And the reality is, in other places where someone is drunk, they will say things like, his heart was merry, but it would say merry with wine or cheered with wine. And it's not that it's only wine. Wine's the only thing that can get you drunk. But in this case, I believe his heart is merry because he's full. He's full and satisfied. Because it doesn't indicate that he was drunk, and therefore he was merry on the wine. There's no indication in this text that Boaz was improper in what he had done. So he had eaten and he had drunk. He'd had his fill, and his heart was merry. He was satisfied. I really believe that's what this is indicating based on other clues from the scriptures. So I wanted to put that to bed here, especially as we've talked about the character of Boaz. Now if you see this godly character throughout, and now he's drunk, okay, maybe you have some questions about that. So recognizing I don't believe that that's what this is indicating. I believe he was just satisfied. So then he goes to lie down at the end of the heap of grain, and she came down softly and uncovered his feet and lay down. Now, again, as I mentioned, at night things cool off. You have wind coming through. I would imagine if your feet get exposed like that, it could be enough to startle you. If not that much, if the woman grazes your foot as she's laying at your feet, that would probably be enough to wake you up, right? I don't know. But at any rate, at midnight, he was startled. He turned over, and behold, a woman. All right, there she is. What is going on? This is abnormal. I've done this for many years. I've never had this experience. So, unsurprisingly, he says, "Who are you?" She answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer." If you remember earlier in the book of Ruth, Boaz talked about how Ruth was a woman of high character and how she came. He proclaims a blessing over her, really, and he says that she might be that she might find relief or might find care under the God of Israel, under whose wings she's come, right? She sought this under the wings, spreading of the wings over your servant. This is a notation of protection, all right? So she's saying, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings that you would protect me. You are a protector over me, for you are a redeemer." Interestingly, it was not a leap day when she made this proposal. For those who understand that reference, the whole historical thing that women can propose marriage on leap day. Okay, moving on from that. So essentially, she's saying, "You're a redeemer. I want to marry you. I want you to spread your wings over me. I want you to be my protector in this life. I want you to protect me. So spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer." All right, talked about redeemer a lot. What is a redeemer here? And there are two things at play in this situation with a kinsman redeemer or a redeemer in this situation. You have a levirate marriage and a kinsman redeemer. And so let's look at this. Levirate marriage is in Deuteronomy 25. We've talked about this a little bit already, but if brothers dwell together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the dead man shall not be married outside the family to a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her and take her as his wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And the first son whom she bears shall succeed to the name of his dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out against Israel. That brings you back to the story with Onan, the brother that was supposed to fulfill this duty in Genesis, and he didn't. Instead of impregnating her, he made sure that she wouldn't get pregnant when they came together. And so he was struck dead for his wickedness, because he knew, and the text tells us in Genesis, he knew that the son would not be his. And so what he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord struck him dead for that wickedness in that moment. This is the setup here. This is the structure for this. And why is this? Well, really, this is all addressing them as they enter the promised land, all right? And so the idea of a levirate marriage was, one, for the possession of the land to remain in the family, for the name of the family to still be maintained, so that even though this brother has died, there's going to be descendants that carry out his name. And that also retains then the possession of the land for the betterment of that family. And also, remember, the Lord is the one who has promised this land to the nation of Israel, right? He's promised this land to Abraham. And so when this land has been promised, this is a way in which that land continues to go forth, even in a situation where someone dies. So the land remains theirs. It continues to be theirs. And I think about this even to this day, the disputes over the land of Israel, right? There's disputes going on. And I'm like, this is the land that the Lord has given to the descendants of Abraham. And now I know we can get into all that, all the political side of it, but really to this day there's all kinds of turmoil over whose land is this rightfully, right? And these laws, these situations, these rules were put into place to protect the land, that it would continue on in the family who possessed that land. So that's what levirate marriage is. It's this idea of not just marrying the widow of your brother who's passed, but actually providing children to carry on the name of the brother who's passed, that there would be an inheritance coming and a continuation of that name in that way. So that's the levirate marriage aspect of this. We know that in this case, no brothers were available for this to be fulfilled in that manner. Now you have this idea of a kinsman redeemer that comes in, and this is in Leviticus 25. And it says this: if your brother becomes poor and sells part of his property, then his nearest redeemer shall come and redeem what his brother had sold. If a man has no one to redeem it, and then himself becomes prosperous and finds sufficient means to redeem it, let him calculate the years since he sold it and pay back the balance to the man to whom he sold it, and then return to his property. So this pertains more with a kinsman. Kinsman is kinfolk. It's someone who's in your family. It's a relative who could redeem the property. And so if someone's poor, they can't afford their property. This is Naomi, a widow. She cannot afford to keep the property that was hers with Elimelech, right? Her husband who's passed, and she has no sons to carry that on. So she's at a position now where she's hoping that someone could redeem the property. And she's recognizing that this would be a benefit not just for her, but also for Ruth, because Ruth would be cared for by a redeemer who's a man of high character who would retain the land, so there would be value in the land itself, but also would care for her and meet her needs. And so realizing, hey, connecting the dots, right, Boaz, he's a close relative of my deceased husband, and he's a man of high character. His reputation goes before him. So you think of it in this regard, he's in a position then where, or she's in a position where she needs to sell the property, so to speak, and this redeemer is in a position to be able to do so in a way that honors those who've passed. It honors Elimelech. That's why she said, oh, he's honored the living and the dead in this way. This is how he can do that as a kinsman redeemer, where these things, though it would be possessed now by Boaz, you have Elimelech's name still associated with it. You have that family still associated with that land. So that's where that's set up. And then I'll just pass on. 47 and 49 talk more about the stranger and sojourner and all that. It's further explanation of that, but I think that's sufficient to understand. Those are the two things at play in this situation. All right, so he says, verse 9, who are you? And she answers, I'm Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer, i.e., put a ring on it. If you like it, just put a ring on it. And he said, may you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, and that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. He's like, I'm an old dude, and you are all about being into me. No, it's not what he says. He's saying, though, it's her character, as well as his, both on display in this, right? He's saying, you've made this kindness greater than the first because you've not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. You have sought to step into this as having a kinsman redeemer. You've come to me as a kinsman of Elimelech, your father-in-law who's passed on. But this isn't just about you. You are looking to care for Naomi in this process. You could have gone after a young man, some young buck, some young stud out there. You could have chased after him. But instead, you've come here. This is kindness not just to Boaz, who's obviously enamored with this freshly bathed woman, but also he's looking at this saying, hey, you want to care for your mother-in-law in this because she's going to be cared for. He sees her character in this. And he sees that it's not just kind to him as an old man with this bride who's willing to become his bride, but also that she's going to be caring for her mother-in-law in that process. And for those to whom she is married, she is completely joined into this family. Remember, she was a Moabite from another land altogether, and now she's all in. She's already expressed that, and now she's saying, it's like doubling down on her commitment already, right? I'm all in. So I want to marry you, and then this land of my mother-in-law's, of my family that I've married into will continue. Kind of in perpetuity, it will remain within the family with you as our kinsman redeemer. So he sees her character, and he's based on her actions here. May you be blessed by the Lord. Again, he proclaims a blessing on her. Then he says this, and now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask, for all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer. Yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until morning. Now, in this situation, he's not being amorous, right? This isn't, hey, lay with me, see what might happen. No, this is really for her protection. He says, lie down with me until morning for that reason, because it would not be safe for her to venture. It was already risky enough for her to venture to him, kind of under the cloak of darkness. And now you're in the middle of the night. Don't go and move on from here. He's not saying, stay with me so that we can consummate this thing before we've committed to each other. That's not it at all. In fact, you see his character on display fully here because he says, it is true, verse 12, it is true that I am a redeemer, yet there is one nearer than I. There's another one who has the first rights to redeem you in this situation. And so I don't want to step out of line, though I desire this because I see your character, I see you're a worthy woman. By the way, that phrase worthy woman in verse 11 is the same that you read in Proverbs 31:10 about an excellent wife. Right? This is the terminology that is being described to this Moabite woman. All right? So recognizing that, so he says, remain tonight. And then in a few months, I'll take care of this. No. Remain tonight and in the morning. I'm not delaying on this. I'll make sure you're cared for. If he'll redeem you, good, let him do it. I will walk away. I'll know you're cared for, and that's good enough for me. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then committing himself, as the Lord lives. Does the Lord live? Yes. So as the Lord lives, he's making a vow to her in light of the Lord whom they both serve now. As he lives, I will redeem you. If this guy won't take you, if he's not willing to do it, I will absolutely do this. So lie down until morning. So she lay at his feet until the morning, but arose before one could recognize another. And he said, let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. And he said, bring the garment you are wearing and hold it out. So she held it, and he measured out 6 measures of barley and put it on her. Then she went into the city. So she lays at his feet. She listens to what he tells her. Man, she listens to Naomi. Now she's listening to Boaz in this. She lays there. She remains until morning. Then she arises before anyone could recognize another. And he said, let it not be known. And I think there's a reason for this. It's not that they did anything improper, as some have tried to indicate. Oh, he's trying to hide their sin. But it is the reality of, if this other person is going to redeem her, there's no sense in making a big deal of what's taken place this night, because what people might assume took place didn't take place this night, right? So his point is, let it not be known that this woman, the woman came to the threshing floor. So don't be going and telling people about this, because I'm going to go to this redeemer, and frankly, if he finds out that you spent the night here, even though we didn't do the things that you assume we did, it may not go well for you. It may bring dishonor to you. It may bring dishonor to me, and it may ultimately impact this. So it's let it not be known. It's not, oh, we did something wrong, so let it not be known. There's prudence in, hey, let's not broadcast this, that you came here for this purpose tonight. And then he blessed her as she goes, even though this thing, hey, he doesn't know exactly how this is going to play out. He doesn't know that she may become his wife. Foreshadowing there, spoiler alert. But he says, bring the garment you are wearing and hold it out. So she holds out that cloak, this garment that she was wearing. She holds it out, and he measures out 6 measures of barley. Now, that measure, we don't know what that measurement is, but the whole point is not, oh, let's get the precise measurement. It's he's just pouring it on. He's just giving her so much, so generous for her and for Naomi. So all this barley, and then he puts it on her, and she goes into the city. It says this in verse 16, and when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, how did you fare, my daughter? Then she told her all that the man had done for her, saying, these 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said to me, you must not go back empty-handed to your mother-in-law. See, he's not just about getting what's his in this marriage. He's concerned about the well-being of her and her mother-in-law. This is a man of good character, of godly character. And this is a woman who's demonstrating that same kind of character in this. She comes back, hey, I'm not harboring this. She could have said, I only brought back 3, right? And these 3 are for me, these 3 are... No, these 6 measures he gave to me. Why? Because I can't go back empty-handed to my mother-in-law. And then she replied, wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out. For the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today. See, he's laboring not necessarily for his own benefit. He's laboring, well, maybe partially for his own benefit. He really likes this woman, right? But it's not purely for his own purposes. He's not just marrying her because, oh yeah, check out my trophy wife, the Moabite woman. No, it's not that. He's wanting to care for her and care for Naomi. He is demonstrating this. And because his character is known, Naomi says, wait. Wait until you learn how the matter turns out, because he will not rest. He's going to settle this thing today. Now for us, that's not today. It's going to get settled next time we're in Ruth. But for today, here's our takeaways that we see in the text. I mentioned these 4 things that we'll see. I think first and foremost, we see that Ruth and Boaz interact in purity and righteousness. Like I said, some have tried to speculate and read into the text things that I don't think historically are represented there. And so they interact with one another in purity and righteousness. And I would say this, they don't just interact with each other on those terms. I think we see they're interacting with others in general, in purity and righteousness, in a godly manner. So we must honor God in our treatment of all others. Not just the ones we're courting, the ones we're married to, right? We must honor God in our treatment of all others. Their consideration is to maintain their integrity, to be proper in how they interact, that they would treat each other in purity and righteousness. So we must operate in such a way that our treatment of others is grounded in Christ-likeness, and it's pure and righteous because of the righteous one who's redeemed us, right? So let us honor the Lord in how we treat all others, not just the ones that we're enamored with, like Ruth and Boaz seem to be in this. But they're not just that, right? Ruth and Boaz seek to bless Naomi if they marry. See, their marriage would be a blessing, not just for the two of them, but a blessing to Naomi, and then to honor the name of Elimelech, her husband, and her family, and it's a blessing to others in general. And so I would say this, extrapolating out from that, our marriages should lead to others' blessings too. Right? I wouldn't say that's directly explicit in the text, but I think it's clear that their priority in getting married wasn't just because they were burning with passion for one another and they couldn't wait to consummate this marriage and have each other forever and it's us against the world, baby, right? Wasn't that mentality. They knew that this union could care well for Naomi, could care well. It would be a blessing to others. So let us look to bless others with our marriages. Those of us who are married, let us seek to allow our marriage to reflect the relationship of Christ and his church, right? Let us seek to do that. Let us seek to be a blessing to others in our marriages. Because I think God designed them ultimately to show his glory, to show his goodness. And so though we're going to love one another imperfectly in our marriages, except for Amanda, she loves me perfectly, right? No. She loves me very well, but not perfectly. All that to say, none of us are going to love each other perfectly in our marriages, but let us seek to let our marriages be a light, right? To shine the light of Christ beyond just, it's just for us. It's us against the world, right? That's not their mentality, and that's not what our marriages are designed to do. It's to reflect Christ and his love for the church and that relationship. And so let us seek to let our marriages be a blessing beyond just our own household, beyond just raising our own children, that kind of a thing. Let our marriages lead to others' blessings as well. Also, we see Boaz will settle things quickly, so Ruth is cared for. So we see that. That's evident throughout the text. And I would say this, when we have an opportunity where our action or our inaction could have a direct impact on somebody else, let us not delay when our actions could have a direct impact on somebody else. Right? Let us seek to bring resolution in those situations. And I would say this, in this case, this isn't conflict resolution, right? This is trying to navigate the things that are in front of them. But in our circumstances, it may be something very different. It may be a situation where, man, I'm struggling because someone said these nasty things about me or whatever the case may be. I was wronged in this situation. Well, let us not delay when our actions can directly impact another. So if I'm struggling with resentment or bitterness towards a brother or sister in Christ or something, or another person, let me not hold on to that. Instead, let me take action. Take action first and foremost towards the Lord, to get vertically aligned, get rightly, properly aligned with the Lord, and then take action where I need to as far as it impacts others, that they might be blessed, that we be able to settle things quickly when things are lingering and things are unresolved, right? Let us seek to not delay, but let our actions that will impact others, let us take action so that our actions can have a benefit in that situation. And finally, we see this. Boaz doesn't allow desire to lead him to impropriety. Apparently, two wouldn't fit there. So Boaz doesn't allow his desire to lead him to impropriety in his attitude. Again, similar to the first one, he continues to interact in purity and righteousness, but I would say specifically this. He seems to really want to marry this honorable woman, this excellent woman, this worthy woman from Moab. But he doesn't usurp the parameters that God has put in place. He doesn't say, hey, there's this other guy, but let's just keep it on the down low, and we'll just operate this. Let's just go elope. Let's get this thing, let's tie this off, and let's make sure that we're together, and away we go. No, he doesn't allow his desire to lead him to not go through proper channels. And I would say this, we must not seek fulfillment in our lives outside of God's ways. Right? So Boaz, though he had a desire to marry Ruth in this situation, he doesn't force the matter. He doesn't say, I'm going to take this into my own hands and make sure that I can lock this thing down because this is a quality woman. No. He doesn't do that. He doesn't seek fulfillment outside of God's ways. He understands that there's a propriety in this. There's a proper way that God has established, and I'm not going to usurp that to get my own way. He doesn't allow his desire to marry her to usurp what God has called him to do. And he knows, I'm an honorable man. I'm going to operate honorably, and so I must not seek fulfillment or satisfaction outside of what God has ordained for me in this. And God has called me to follow the parameters within which he has established this for the Redeemer aspect here. And there's another guy. He's actually nearer. His relationship is closer, therefore he's first in line for the Redeemer. So I can't just jump in and take that. Let's see what he does. If he'll have you, great. I'll walk away. But if not, you better believe I'm coming for you, girl. Right? That's essentially it. If he won't do it, I will. I've got you. I will make sure you are looked after. I will make sure you are cared for because you came to me and said, under your wings, right? Put me under your wings. Protect me. And he's like, I will do that. Whether it's me carrying that out all the days of my life or whether it's me making sure that the Redeemer who's first in line can step in and bring about that redemption to you.